All right. Hey, everybody. It is Monday, March 12th, and I'm glad you took time to join us tonight for our team time. We really like to come together at this time and just offer the opportunity for us to connect, and we want to provide value so that we can help you move forward wherever you are in your business and what you want with your business. And so, every time we talk, I just always want to, I feel like sometimes I don't always say it, but I just want to, first preface by saying that we recognize that everybody is in different places with their business, and that everybody, may be in a different place in terms of what they want with growth of their business. And the cool thing about Optavia is that there is room for everybody, no matter where you are. And what I think is even cooler is that we have the opportunity and the right to change our goals and our vision over time. So we present a lot of information that is really geared towards really helping us serve and serve as many people as possible, because that's truly the mission of Optavia. And so I always want to preface whatever we talk about is always with the heart of serving and helping more people with this incredible, incredible gift. So I thought tonight we would talk about, a lot of times we do, what do we do? The primary functions of a health coach are two things, right? We're going to acquire and support clients, and then we're going to acquire and support coaches, right? Through what we offer with Optavia for their transformation. So a lot of times when we're talking, I'm going to speak primarily tonight about when we're sharing about the program and the healthy body piece of it. But sometimes we run into some challenges with individuals. I mean, I hate to even use the word objections, but sometimes people are hesitant, right? They don't maybe fully understand what it is that we offer, or maybe they feel like they're not in a position to move forward. And so our only role as coaches is to help inform, right? So that they can make an informed decision. And I will certainly say, I've been one in the past, and probably even about this program, to have certain ideas in my head of what something was, but it wasn't necessarily the truth, or I didn't quite get it yet. So we thought we'd talk about two primary topics tonight. And if you have another challenge or something that you'd like to talk about, is just pop it in the chat, because we'll probably have a few minutes to be able to do it. But we thought we'd talk about the two different scenarios. One of them being around the cost of the program. Sometimes we run into that where an individual will say, well, I really like the idea of this, but I can't afford it. There's sometimes that situation. And then there's also, sometimes there's a situation around the actual fuelings that we use, and that somebody might want to use grocery store foods versus, a structured program like we have. And so really just wanted to spend some time tonight. And we're having Susan Giesland and Julie Apple, two very experienced coaches, kind of share what their experience has been and some of the word choices they use and how do they handle those situations. And recognize that all we're doing is sharing information with people, helping them to make an informed decision. But at the end of the day, it's their decision, right? So we're sharing and then letting them decide. So I thought we'd talk a little bit first about maybe the cost of the program, and whether it's somebody who's coming on board new when you're sharing about it, or maybe they're in progress and they think that maybe they can't afford it anymore. So Susan, you've been coaching for a long time, and you actually shared with me some words you've been using lately that have been effective in communicating with your clients. So do you mind just spending a little time on this topic for us?
Oh yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, because I will tell you, this is one of the concepts that I had to wrap my head around, was the cost. And for a while, I almost felt like I was apologizing, until I really got to look deep into what we do as coaches and what this company, what Optavia offers to our clients in the way of health. So once I kind of looked at what the makeup is of the fuelings and what the whole program does with the 5-in-1, I realized that it is a major investment in our health. And that is how I kind of approach it when I get the objection of, oh my gosh, it costs that much money, blah, blah, blah. And I take a moment with my candidates and I say, okay, well, what is it about the cost that concerns you? And well, I never really spent that much money, at one time or whatever. And I do explain that we order it monthly, it saves on shipping and all of that. But then I asked them, I said, well, what do you spend a month on food? Starbucks, drive-throughs, grab and go stuff, et cetera, et cetera. I said, take some time and look at how much do you spend more than $100 a week. More often than not, that's a yes. But I've had a few that have said, well, no, not really. And I said, okay. And I will reference Doug Wood's recent video on this because he gave such great tips, and it's in our coach page. But take that moment and say, so you spend $200 a month on food. Is that getting you where you want to go in your health? Well, of course not. So I try to ask the question of, sort of in a nice way of saying, how's that working for you, but not saying it with an attitude like that. So, and then also I challenge them to take a look, like I said, of what they spend, but also breaking it down into helping them realize that they're replacing meals. And that, as you know, it's like roughly $12, $13 a day. And what did you just spend on lunch yesterday? I can guarantee you they spent $12, $13 on lunch. So I kind of look at it like that. And I asked them, I said, well, where do you want to go? Where do you want your health to be? And anything that we want to achieve and grow from, it's an investment in ourselves. A lot of times I'll have professionals that went out and invested a lot of money to become certain certifications, and it's the same thing. This is an investment into your health, so that you can do X, Y, and Z that you just told me you wanted to do. So I try to take it back to their why, and what has not worked in the past for them. And that's kind of how I do it. And it has been really, it gives people, I was afraid to be that bold, to be honest with you. And then when I started being that bold, I realized it really wasn't bold. It was just honest. It was just an opportunity for people to take a step back and go, wow, that makes a lot of sense. What are you preventing by becoming healthy? What are the expenses you're preventing down the road? That kind of thing. So that's what I've been doing. And that, if you haven't watched that video yet from Doug Wood, 7 minutes long, is great. I highly recommend it.
Oh yeah, I'll see if I can share that from. It's in the sponsoring boot camp, but
I think.
Oh, is it already there? Okay, good, good. I think you're right. I did share it there. Yeah, I think that's so important, Susan. And I love what you said. Like, you felt like, oh, like, I don't know if I want to be that bold. But then when you were really, what were you doing? You were sharing the truth. You were just sharing about it. Any examples around when, sometimes along the way, somebody gets tripped up with the cost of the program and wants to maybe stop because of the cost? Any guidance around that?
I use some of the same thing. Look at how far you've come. Look at what you're doing now and how your health is, and look at what this investment has already paid off for you. And I try to be, it's a great time to kind of get to know a little bit more of what their need is, and perhaps maybe coaching would be a helpful need. But I try to it's a kind of the same sort of method I use, by going back to why did we do this in the beginning, and what have you got, where are you at now, and how else are you going to get where you want to go if it's not from the fuelings? I mean, it's, what do you want to achieve? How fast do you want to get there? How do you want to feel? In fat burn, how great we all feel in fat burn with the energy and the lack of cravings, and we're not hungry. I said, how do you want to feel on your journey? So I kind of try to I had one client ask me that today, as a matter of fact. Should I pull back and do 3 and 3 and use these other protein, carbs that are listed in the Habits of Health book on page 120? And I said, well, then you're not going to feel as good as you do now. It's basically.
That was really good analogy. Well, thank you for that. And I thought we might go through a real life example, because there's words we use when we describe the program, or when we're going over the cost of the program, but sometimes what's going on in our head is coming out of our mouth without us realizing it. And I have a real clear example for myself around the fueling, so I'll share about that. But so we call them concepts. And what that means is that, in our head, if we're thinking to ourselves like, ooh, I don't know if they can afford this, even the way we deliver it is going to sound different than when somebody is you're confident that they probably have the resources to do it. It's just in our delivery, the way we project out around it. So Lisa Edwards and I recently had a conversation because she was hitting an obstacle of, she said, everybody's, I'm not getting a lot of yeses. And I said, okay, what's the common denominator? Like, what's the common theme? And she said that they can't afford it. And so Lisa, you just want to share a little bit about what that conversation looked like?
Yeah, so it's quite a coincidence that we just had that conversation last Wednesday. So I'll start out by saying, if you guys aren't having a weekly call with your business coach, please do that, because this is a great example of that. It's helped give me clarity, because that has been one of the big issues for me. And when you asked, we were talking about it, and you asked me, well, Lisa, do you think the program's expensive? And I thought, and I knew right then why you were asking me that, because what I found myself doing was projecting my bias because of where I came from, and I was looking through it through a filter of what I would have thought that the person could pay or not pay. And if I look at it from a different perspective of most people, if they want to prioritize something, they will find the money for it to invest in their health. And I've practiced some of the suggestions that you made to me last week. I've practiced that this week, and I'm feeling more confident in saying it, and I can feel that it's coming across a lot stronger. And I love what Susan just said about feeling that when you first started out and talking about it, that you almost, it's like you're apologizing for it. And reflecting back on it when I first started, that's exactly what I felt like I was doing. So that conversation just helped me tremendously. Good.
Yeah, I felt, it's interesting. When I learned about Optavia, it was Take Shape for Life at the time. It wasn't even before it had been offered to me as an opportunity. I was getting a massage at a chiropractor's office, and the massage therapist, I was on the table, and she starts telling me about this, she needs to lose weight, and that the doctor was going to start offering this program and whatever. And I asked the question, how much does it cost? And she said 300 something, whatever. And in my head, because I didn't know any different, I thought to myself, whoa, that's expensive. Because I knew nothing about it. In my head, I thought it was $300 on top of, like, I could only imagine if I came on to Larry and said, oh, I'm going to spend $300 on top of everything else we're already eating, right? So it was skewed in my head. But then over time, after, coaching this for so long, I mean, to me, it's a steal. There is no better investment than yourself. But honestly, when you map it out with the money, $80 to $85 a week, people are spending that. And one great example that we have of that, actually a coach on our team, her aunt introduced her to the program, and her aunt is also a coach. And so Vicki had, shared about the program, and Mindy said, oh, I would love to do that, but I don't think we can afford it. And Vicki said, well, why don't you go back and add up everything that you spent the month before on groceries, everything, every Starbucks, every dinner out, everything. And so this is just something for you to think about as you're working with your clients, if they want to try to make it work. Because we're not looking to talk them into it, just showing them some options. And so she went back, told her, asked her husband and said, well, Aunt Vicki says that we need to add everything up. And he said, well, there's no way we spent that amount of money. We can't do that. And he adds it up. And it turned out for the two of them, they had spent like $600 or $700 on groceries the month before. And he said to himself, like, oh gosh, that can't be right. Like, we were on vacation last month. Like, it did another month before that. Did that other month, it was even higher than the month before. So not only did she go on the program, he went on with her. Right? So it was just the power of knowledge, because they did not know or realize how much they were spending. So that was a no, from a misunderstanding or not knowing, to a KNOW. So hopefully that's helpful to you. Any questions around that before we move to the topic of the fuelings, Zena?
I just want to share this because this helped me this week. I don't know where I heard it on one of the calls, but it's about starting the program. And it was like, can you eat 6 times a day? And most people that, and can you pay $2.50 a meal? And can you drink the water, how many ounces? And that really broke it down for me because I was breaking it down for everybody per the week. And $2.50 a meal for me, I just I used it all week and it just felt better, felt good.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that.
And, I'm on maintenance. I've used this with people before, but, still to eat balanced, right? And one day, I always have bars with me and all that, and for convenience. And one day, you know how it goes. You're strapped, you're empty-handed, you're starving. And, I went into Kroger and I'm trying to look for what can I eat that's balanced. Walked out with a, plain Greek yogurt and a small apple, and it was like $2.89. So it's, a lot of times there's a conception that we can eat cheaper with grocery store foods, but if you're really eating truly healthy and balanced, it's pretty much cost neutral. That's the way the program is designed. And one thing that I do when I deliver the cost of the program is, just speak it with confidence. So there's no hesitation in my voice. And basically it is, here's what you're going to love. All you're going to, I just kind of posture it, you're going to get 30, your program's going to include 30 days of fuelings. It's going to include, your first order is going to include all your education books, my services, all the online support that you get. That is all included. And, the first month is going to be about $392.15. If you do the math, that's going to average out to about $80 to $85 a week. And your future orders will be between $360 and $380 to $380. And, just kind of state it without apology. And most times, it works, or if somebody, is hesitant, they'll come back. So hopefully that's helpful around that. I thought we'd talk next about the actual use of the fuelings, because sometimes there's misunderstanding on what they are. Are they packaged food? Are they not? Is it good for you? Is it bad? Do I want to do that? Is that too drastic? Like, you hear all kinds of things. So Julie Apple has great experience with this because as a trainer, she has spent many years helping people get healthy on multiple different ways with their nutrition. So Julie, will you just kind of share your personal journey around use of fuelings and how you communicate that to people now?
Yeah. So I think this journey of helping people with nutrition started when I worked at a small gym where we helped people with nutrition. That's when I really started learning about how big the nutrition piece was. And we helped them with creating meal plans, and we broke down the macros for them. And believe it or not, it was actually 40-40-20, which is exactly what our meal plans are, or what our Optavia is. And 40% carbs, 40% protein, 20% fat. And that's how I traditionally created meal plans for people, is I broke it down for them and said, you need to have this many carbs, you need to have this much protein, and you want to get this much fat. And this is what your day should look like. And if you prepare 6 meals a day, you'll be there at the end of the day. And so I did that when I first started my business. I helped clients do that for about a year. And I watched maybe about a third of my clients be successful, the ones that stayed home and actually had time to meal prep. And then the other 2/3 didn't really do so well and didn't do it. And their excuse was, I don't have time, Julie. I don't have time. Can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Should have done this on my phone. My computer hates Zoom. But anyway, so if you tell me, or somebody just hold your hand up if I freeze. But when I started using the program in replace of traditional meal planning, it was a big leap of faith. And I talked to Dee about this quite a bit. I mean, it actually took me about, how long did I talk to you or know you about this? For 4 years, Dee? But I was so convinced that people need to eat organic, they needed to cook on their own, and they did not need, in my mind, something prepackaged. And that's what I literally told Dee. I was like, my clients don't need that. They know how to do this. They don't need a prepackaged meal. And I had such a bad attitude about it until I watched my clients struggle. And I watched them complain to me all the time. I don't have time, Julie. I don't have time. So it took me seeing that and experiencing that with clients to actually open my mind to think, okay, maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's a better tool. There's something better I can offer them. And so that's when I reached back out to Dee, and we had some really good conversations, and I started kind of using my family and my clients as guinea pigs to see how the program worked. But I still had this thing in my head that they don't need these little fuelings. Like, this is terrible. So at the time, it was still MetaFast, and I still disagreed with the artificial sweeteners, artificial, like, everything that was in there. I just was like, whatever, it's better than their fast food that they're eating. So I'm just going to offer this to clients. So now fast forward a little bit more, 3 years, and I have 0 reservations anymore because I've watched so many people succeed and be successful. And now there's no concept in my head of, oh, I don't know if I like these ingredients, especially since they've been reformulated and there's nothing artificial in them anymore. And so to me, it's not a non-issue. So when clients bring that up, I help them understand, and I'm straight up honest with them. I'm like, you guys, it took me 4 years to be okay with this. They are awesome products. They're awesome fuelings. They have great in nutrition. The ingredients are, look at the back. They have half the ingredients are minerals and vitamins and packed with nutrients that your body needs. So now it's like, I just help people work through it because I've had to struggle with it myself. So once again, it's a mindset thing of how do you look at it? If you're struggling with it, and there was a period a couple of years ago, I was really struggling. And I realized it was a concept for me about artificial sweeteners. And I kept talking about that when I would talk to clients. And I'm like, well, no wonder they're not starting the program, because I'm bringing up the artificial sweeteners and automatically in their head, there's a problem. So once again, like Lisa said, it's kind of what you say drives that conversation, and how you look at it drives what happens with other people and what do they choose to do. So, if you can wrestle with it yourself and come to peace and grips with it, it'll be so much better when you're talking to clients, and then it's a non-issue, really.
Well, that's such a great example. I mean, I think sometimes I heard the lingo called like feel, felt, found. Like, you're able to say to somebody, you know what, I used to feel the same way. I felt that same way. Can I share with you, what I've learned or what I found? And so, yeah, you felt the same way. You agreed, but this is what you've learned along the way. And I use that a lot because I had the same concepts when when the business was presented to me. I read Dr. A's book cover to cover. And the first thing I was like, I like everything about this except these we call them meal replacements at the time. So thank you, Julie, for your transparency and what you shared on that, because I was very much in the same place. And I remember talking to Dr. Skardassis about it, and he was like, well, let's talk about that. Like, what is your concern? And I did enter it, and I was offering the program and people were signing up, but it took me a while to build the confidence behind it. And here I am 7 years later, and it's interesting because it was probably about a year and a half ago, I got a couple of no's in a row about the fuelings, which was unusual because it usually was a non-issue. And suddenly I found myself with my shares starting to wonder, like, oh, are they going to be okay with the fueling? So, I'm sure that was coming out in some way. And so suddenly, like Lisa said, I was in this place of people not wanting to do the program because of the fuelings. And I'm like, and it was rattling me. And then I had to stop and come to terms with it. And I thought to myself, yeah, I mean, we could make the argument that there's a lot of ways to skin a cat and there's a lot of ways to lose weight. But the bottom line is, I've never seen anybody, I mean, hardly anybody, be successful outside of what our program offers. And so I just had to get grounded again in what I know is true. And what I tell people now is that, yes, you can do this, because people often say, well, can I just do your program, but without the fuelings? Like, well, I don't coach that. And I don't coach that because as a health coach, I want my clients to be successful. And when I offer this program as designed, I have a clinically proven program that I know people will get safe, predictable results. So what I say is, you can do it anyway. You can do it on your own if you want, but just compare that to pretty much, you've got a clinical study that's going to show you that you're going to lose 20. So which do you prefer, is my response. So I found that to be very powerful. And I speak boldly about the meal replacements. I mean, to me, it's a non-issue, but I just wanted to share that because even with experience, sometimes a few knows, it's weird what can start to stories you can start to tell yourself in your brain. So any comments or questions around that or experience? Lori? Let me unmute. I got you.
Okay. So this has nothing basically to do with that, except when new people get on the program, I have 3 so far, or 4 out of my new 8 clients, the gas issue. I don't mean gas in your car. It seems to be, I think some people it affects more than others.
Yes.
And they, like, what do you do? Is this normal? And et cetera. And so how do you address that?
That's such a good question. Yeah, suddenly you'll find you get really comfortable talking about bodily functions with people. Yeah. Yeah, usually what I'll tell people is that, you know, there's a couple of things going on, that there is more fiber in the products than they may be used to. There's also probiotic. And anytime we introduce a new bacteria into the gut, there will be a reaction. I mean, I had been using the products for years, and even the switch to Optavia initially, I had to have an acclimation period around that. So I get that. That usually settles over time. If anybody has some kind of dairy intolerance, I have one client just recently, and she started taking a lactate pill before most of her fuelings, and that pretty much resolved the issue for her, because there's a lot of the products have some dairy in them.
Oh, okay.
But they can take a gas X if they need to. It will usually subside. And then the only thing I've heard is that, and I'm not really confident on what the exact ingredient is, but in the crisp bars, something about in that makes them the crispy, there's something in that can be known to cause gas for people. So what I will, if it's really disturbing to somebody, I'll encourage somebody to maybe do a journal and find out if figure out if there's certain products that are causing it more than others. And if it is the bars, maybe to use less of them or only 1 per day, or go to the chewy bars.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. I had a couple other hands up. Anybody else? Beth?
I was just going to say, some people say, I don't eat processed food. I don't eat processed food. What's a good comeback for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe we'll have Julie weigh in on this as well. Often I'll say, well, tell me about a typical day. What does a typical day look like for you? What do you typically eat? Because I think there's often a disconnect of what we think processed food is compared to what it really is. If you're not eating anything processed, you're basically in the meat department and the produce department, because even the dairy is processed, in there. So basically, I usually say anything that comes from inside the perimeter of the grocery store is processed. I do have a document from Nutrition Support around what are fuelings versus processed food. And generally, most times processed food, the assumptions with there is that it has additives, that it has preservatives, unwanted ingredients. And, but usually we can put our Optavia up against that. And I think we could also go back to Susan's analogy. It's like kind of like, well, how's that working for you? That this can be a tool that you use to help get you to your goal, set the structure, and then when you reach your goal, you can absolutely go back to your fuelings. Do you have something to add, Debbie?
Well, can you put the document you were talking about in our files?
Absolutely.
Okay, that would be great.
Do you know if there's an updated one? Because I looked at something and it still says MetaFast and it's kind of dated. And I meant to call. I haven't done it. I haven't called, but I wondered if anybody else has an updated one.
I haven't seen it. Now that you mention it, mine might be dated. I can check on that. Yeah, I've been noticing that recently on several documents, so we can explore that.
On that processed food argument, I hate to say argument, but on the response back to someone saying something about processed food, another thing that I say, like how you said, this is very clean. This isn't a lot of like multi-syllabic ingredients. Another thing I like to say is this is much more like a Centrum vitamin than it is like a Twinkie in the way of processed food. That's a whole lot of really good things smushed together and presented to you than it is this chemical, monstrosity, in a plastic package. Mm-hmm. So that's another way of like just let's define what processed food is.
Absolutely. You know, when I'm describing the eating plan, I'll actually say, you know, I think you're really going to love our program because you described to me that you need convenience, you need, you know, some structure, and it's very simple to follow. And I'll lead with, you know, you're going to eat one meal a day on your own, you know, protein and vegetables. We'll give you the guidelines. And then I'll say, and the other ones will be grab and go fuelings that we provide. And they're awesome because it's just a perfect balance of protein, carbs, vitamins, minerals, and an added probiotic and vitamin D. So, and they meet a clean label standard, so without artificial ingredients or colors or flavorings. And that's just, I just kind of state it like that. So hopefully it will help. And I'll get you that document too around it. And I think it's good just to ask some questions and dig a little bit with them, you know, to see. You know, I think sometimes if some issues come up, it's just sometimes reflecting a readiness issue. And I've had people say no for it and then come back down the road. And that's okay. Something else, Lori? All right.
One more thing. So how do you reapproach somebody who says no? You've already
Oh, you froze up on us.
probiotics that are good, and they say, well, not now.
Okay, so they're just, I think I missed part of what you said, but they're just not ready yet? Or
They say not now. So how do you reapproach them?
You might want to ask them and say, hey, you know, is it okay if I put you on my monthly newsletter? Would you like to receive health tips? Let's stay connected. Is it okay if I check in with you periodically to see how you're doing on your health journey? And then I would just kind of trust your judgment, just depending on what they said. You know, if they seem like a flat out no or whatever, I might give it 3, 4, 5 weeks before I circle back with them. If they seem like they were kind of on the fence, I'd probably come back sooner, in a week or two.
Okay.
How about you, Julie? You're really great with your follow-ups with people.
What was the last part that you asked about, Lori?
Mostly how to follow up once they've kind of said, no, not now, you know, maybe later, but when to follow up and how to kind of approach that the best way.
Does anybody else do the follow-up Friday? So I have to have a structure to it. Otherwise, it gets me rattled because I'm like, oh my gosh, who did I talk to? When do I need to follow up with them? So I just have it set that on Friday, I look back at all the conversations I had and I just reach out. And I just had one on Friday, actually. It was a referral. And I texted her back and I said, hey, I know we got to talk the other night. Did you get to look at the email? Tell me what you're thinking. And she wrote back and she actually said, she goes, I started making changes. Thanks so much for your time. I've already lost 3 pounds. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, but I'll stay in touch with you. And I was like, great, keep doing it. Because I know in my head, she's either 1, going to plateau, or 2, she's going to need more structure. So I am more than okay as long as she's already made changes. I know probably in a month I'll hear from her again, but I won't forget her because she'll go on my map for next month and I'll see her name again and I'll reach out and ask how she's doing.
So maybe monthly at that point, Julie?
Yep.
And Laura, you had said if someone says to you, maybe later, not right now, that kind, like when I get a maybe later, not right now, I say, great, okay, well, what do we say? I'll follow up with you and then I set, so right then and there, I set up the time for talking to them again.
Right.
That way,
Thank you.
everybody kind of already knows what's going to happen.
And I think it's good. You know, I mean, we're here for inspiration to help other people move forward with their health. And so like Julie said, if somebody says, well, I'm going to try this or I'm doing this and it's working, it's like, you know what, more power to you. More power to you. I'm rooting for you. You know, I'm here if you have any questions. Check in with them. You know, I want to see how you're doing. You know, I've got a friend that's down almost 100 pounds on Weight Watchers. But she said a lot of my posts inspired her. I'm going to cheer her every step of the way, you know, that she's doing it. A lot of people can't do that, but she is. And I just want people to know, no matter what, that I'm on their side. And I think when people know that, and that you're not so attached to or trying to, you know, get them to sign up before they're ready, that quiet calmness actually is very attractive to people. So they're more willing to come back around. Sherry, you've had a lot of that, right? You've had, skeptics turn into raving fans. Yeah. Well, very good. Well, thanks for taking time out of your evening tonight. Thanks for being on the call earlier as well. I appreciate every single one of you guys. And we really are an amazing team together. So thank you. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Thanks. I'll get that document out for you too.
Thanks.